How does fresh grass under a cow's hooves turn into this piece of cheese on your table? Today we will trace the entire journey of cheese, from the green meadow to the knife that is about to cut it. Usually we only see the final result, a beautiful piece of cheese on a plate. But this flavor has a long story that begins not in the store, but in the meadow under the open sky. Inside a small piece of cheese are hidden the meadow, the cows, the milk, the work at the dairy, and months of waiting in the aging room. In this video, we will follow, step by step, the journey of cheese, from grass in the field to your table. It all begins in the meadow. Early in the morning, the sun is just rising, dew sparkles on the grass, and the cows are already heading out to pasture. The quality of milk begins with grass. Fresh, juicy greenery, filled with moisture and sunlight, is the first step in the flavor of future cheese. The cow turns grass into milk. Calm grazing in the fresh air is the foundation for the milk to be rich and flavorful. The herd moves across the field from one patch to another. This way the cows receive varied feed, and the meadow has time to recover. In the cow's diet, there's not only grass, but also clover, herbs, and wildflowers. This is the palate from which the flavor of the milk, and therefore the cheese, is built. The farmer watches the herd every day. For him, the cows are not just milk producers, but living animals whose well-being determines the quality of the cheese. Toward evening, the cows return to the farm. Ahead lies milking, the very thing all of this is for, fresh milk. At the farm, the cows enter the milking parlor. Here, cleanliness, calm, and a familiar routine are crucial so that the animals feel safe. Before milking, the udder is carefully cleaned and disinfected. This protects both the cow and the milk, so that nothing unwanted ends up in the cheese. Milking cups are attached to the udder. Gentle pulsations carefully collect the milk into the tubing system, quickly, hygienically, and without pain for the animal. Fresh milk immediately enters a closed system. Through transparent pipes, it flows into a collection tank without touching air or foreign odors. Warm, freshly drawn milk is collected in a large tank. Here it rests briefly before beginning its journey to the cheesemaking room. To preserve quality and freshness, the milk is quickly cooled to the required temperature. The shorter the path from milking to cooling, the better the base for future cheese. Part of the milk is sent to the lab. Here, fat, protein, purity, and safety are checked. Only good milk has a chance to become good cheese. Using a separator, the milk is divided into cream and skimmed fraction. Then they are blended again in the right proportion to achieve a stable fat content for a specific type of cheese. Depending on the recipe, cheese is made from richer or lighter milk. This will determine the texture, a supple, creamy cheese, or a denser, drier one. Before the milk enters the cheese-making kettle, it is filtered once more. This is the final preparation step. From here, the actual cheese-making begins. The prepared milk is poured into the cheese-making kettle. For now, it is just a white liquid, but in a few hours it will turn into a curd from which the cheese will be born. Freshly collected milk is poured into a large cheese vat. Here, its transformation into cheese will begin. This is the main, magic vessel of the whole dairy. The milk is gently heated to the required temperature. Too cold, and the process will be too slow. Too hot, and the starter and rennet may not work properly. A starter culture, helpful bacteria, is added to the warm milk. They will change the milk from within, preparing it to coagulate and shaping the future flavor of the cheese. After the starter is added, the milk is given time to mature. On the outside, almost nothing happens, but inside, billions of bacteria begin their work. Now, rennet is added to the milk. After a few minutes of gentle stirring, it is left undisturbed. so the milk can turn into a firm curd. This stage seems the quietest, but it's crucial. The milk ceases to be just a liquid. Deep in the vat, a curd is forming, the base of future cheese. After a while, the cheesemaker checks readiness. A knife is inserted and lifted slightly. If the curd breaks cleanly with clear whey appearing in the cut, it is time to move on. The curd is cut with a special harp into even cubes. The size of these grains will determine how firm and dry the cheese will be. Between the pieces of curd, whey starts to appear. The more carefully the grains are handled at this stage, the more even the cheese's structure will be. The curd grains are gently stirred so that they firm up and release excess moisture. It is important to find a balance here, not breaking the grains too small and not leaving them too large. The curd grains are gradually heated while stirring continues. At higher temperatures, the grains firm up and lose excess moisture. The future cheese becomes denser. From the size and elasticity of the grains, the cheesemaker knows when to stop. The grains should be firm enough to hold their shape, but not rubbery. Part of the whey is carefully drained so that mainly curd grains with a little liquid remain in the vat. The less whey, the more concentrated the future cheese becomes. The curd grains, along with remaining whey, are transferred into molds. Here they begin to gather into a single wheel, taking on their final size and shape. Tables fill with molds packed to the brim with curd. Whey begins to trickle out through the holes and the mass slowly settles. Under its own weight, the curd compacts and sinks lower. Without any intervention, gravity helps form a more uniform structure of the wheel. Then the press is engaged. Gentle pressure from above on the molds intensifies whey expulsion and helps the grains fuse into a dense unified mass. Under the press, thin streams of whey flow steadily from the molds. The more evenly the pressing goes, the more consistent the cheese's density and quality will be. When pressing is finished, the mold is removed. In front of us is a young wheel of cheese, still pale and moist, but already in its final shape. The surface of the young cheese is smooth and slightly shiny from moisture. For now, it is a blank. Its rind and full flavor will form later during salting and aging. The next stage is salting. Young cheese wheels are immersed in a large tank of concentrated brine, which will give them flavor and help form the rind. Each wheel is gently lowered into the brine. It is important that the salt is distributed evenly over the entire surface of the cheese. During salting, the wheels are periodically turned. This helps the salt penetrate evenly and prevents the cheese from deforming. Salt penetrates the rind and upper layers of the cheese. It not only adds flavor, but also acts as a natural preservative, protecting the product from unwanted microbes. After the bath, the wheels are laid on racks so that excess brine can drip off. At this stage, the cheese is already noticeably salty in taste, but still very young. Drops of brine slowly run off the rind. The moisture leaves, while the salt remains inside the cheese, fixing its flavor. Each wheel is marked with a date, batch number, and sometimes the dairy's logo. These marks later make it possible to track how long and under what conditions the cheese has been aged. The salted and marked wheels are loaded onto a trolley and taken to the aging room. Ahead lie months of quiet, during which the cheese will develop its flavor and character. Cheese matures in a dedicated space, the aging room. It has its own microclimate, its own smell, and its own slow, quiet sense of time. On the shelves, there are dozens and hundreds of cheese wheels. Some have arrived recently, others have been lying here for months, but each wheel has enough space and time. Inside the aging room, there is a special atmosphere. Cool air, high humidity, and a dense aroma of cheese. Everything here is dedicated to one task: to let the product mature in peace. Temperature and humidity are controlled to the degree and percent. Too dry, and the cheese will crack. Too humid, and the rind will develop unwanted mold. After a few weeks, the cheesemaker inspects the rind. From the color, smell, and surface condition, they can tell whether maturation is going correctly. The wheels are turned regularly. This helps redistribute moisture and fat inside the cheese and ensures the rind forms evenly on all sides. The rind is cared for. It is brushed and sometimes rubbed with brine or a special mixture. This controls the development of natural microflora and the character of the future flavor. Weeks and months pass, and the cheese gradually changes. The rind becomes denser and darker. Inside, a complex flavor develops that young cheese simply cannot have. A young wheel and an aged wheel of the same cheese can look very different, even though they started from the same milk. Time is the main invisible ingredient. Before declaring the cheese ready, the master always tastes it. They evaluate the pattern of holes, aroma, density, and flavor, checking whether everything has turned out as intended. At a certain point, the cheesemaker decides, this batch has matured. The cheese is ready to leave the aging room and go to the people who will eat it. The label or stamp always indicates the aging time. The same cheese at 3, 6, and 12 months is already 3 different personalities and 3 different taste stories. The aged wheel is carefully cut in half. At this moment, the cheese's inner world is revealed for the first time. The pattern, holes, structure, and color of the paste. Everything is visible on the fresh cut. Size and shape of the holes, density, uniformity, the shade from center to rind. From this pattern, one can read the story of the aging. From the large wheel, convenient pieces for sale, wedges, or blocks are cut. Each piece should be large enough to express the cheese's character, yet easy for customers to buy. The large cut face is placed in the display with the cut side toward the glass, and portion pieces lie beside it. This way, the customer immediately sees which cheese they are choosing. The chosen piece is wrapped in plastic film or special cheese paper, and a label is applied with the name, weight, price, and aging time. In the store, cheese has its own display case. Soft, hard, young, and aged cheeses lie side by side. A whole world of flavors in one chilled counter. The customer carefully studies the display and chooses this particular piece of cheese. At that moment, the long journey of milk and maturation meets someone's personal taste and mood.
Here is the aged Gouda.
The scales register the exact weight, and the register prints a price label. Now, this piece has both gastronomic and monetary value. At the checkout, the cheese becomes part of an ordinary purchase, next to bread, vegetables, and fruit. Yet it will often be the main highlight of dinner.
Perfect. Thanks so much.
With a bag in hand, the person walks home. Somewhere inside, among other groceries, lies that very piece of cheese that the whole journey, from grass in the meadow to the store display, has led to. At home, the groceries turn into a future dinner. Among the vegetables, bread, and fruit, the wrapped piece of cheese is placed on the table. For now, just one of the ingredients. The wrapper rustles and is set aside, and the cheese finally comes fully into the light. At this moment, it stops being a product and becomes part of the coming meal. The cheese is sliced into thin pieces. Each cut reveals a smooth texture and even pattern, the result of all the stages it has gone through. From a simple piece, a whole cheese plate is born. Bread, fruit, nuts, and a bit of honey highlight the cheese's flavor and turn it into the centerpiece of a small home celebration. People gather around the table. The cheese becomes not just a product, but a reason to sit together, talk, and share one meal.
This cheese is incredible, Brooke.
We have to try the chutney with the bread. Cheers, everyone.
Someone takes a slice of cheese and pauses for a second before tasting it. And that gesture is the entire path traveled by grass, cows, milk, and the dairy. The first bite, and the cheese's flavor opens in the mouth. Salt, creaminess, nutty notes, a slight sharpness from aging. Everything that happened over months was for these
This
few
cheese
seconds of
selection
pleasure.
is incredible.
A brief moment of
Did you
quiet
try
settles
the
over
one
the
with
table.
truffle yet?
Not yet, but I definitely
Everyone is
will.
occupied with their piece of cheese and their own thoughts. Flavor connects people just as much as conversation. From grass under hooves to cheese on a fork, this entire journey usually stays off screen. But without it, there would be no flavor, no pleasure, and no such simple moment at home. Behind every piece of cheese, there are people. Farmers, milkers, cheesemakers, workers at the dairy. Their daily, almost invisible work becomes what we casually call cheese. When we know a product's story, its taste becomes deeper.
It's so lovely to
Next
finally
time,
catch
try to
up
see a
like
piece of
this.
cheese not only as food, but as the
Cheers
result
to
of a
that. The
long
wine
journey
is
shaped by
perfect.
nature and people.
This brie is
If you enjoy
absolutely
these from
incredible.
earth to table journeys, support this video with a like and a subscription to the channel.
Pairs perfectly.
There are many more stories ahead about oil, chocolate, bread, coffee, and other foods we cannot imagine our lives without.